confide their fitness. Like for me, fitness is an outlet. You know, if I'm traveling, I want to be exercising. I feel better when I do it.
Yeah. You're going to travel and then not do anything. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And then just eat like crap.
Dude, so it's so funny. Are we alive?
Yeah, we're live now.
Oh, are we?
Yeah.
So it's so
We're in.
We're in. So it's funny the
Hello,
way
Facebook. Hello, YouTube.
so I get this a lot. I get hey, the day before you have a competition, or at the competition, you know, what do you eat? And I'm like, well, I eat the same thing I've been eating for the past 6 months or a year. And it's funny the way people always ask that question, like, what's your game day? What's your pre? And, you know, my response to that is that you want to kind of give your body what it's used to. And if you want to try and eat cleaner or whatever the day before, well, then maybe you should be eating clean consistently leading up to that, right? Because if you change something the day before, you don't know how it's going to make you feel. And anyways.
Yeah, well, it just goes back to the old adage of you don't have to be fancy, you just have to be consistent. You know, like if you, it's great to put in a good effort for 4 weeks and to transform your body, or 6 weeks or 8 weeks, or take a 30-day challenge.
You know all about that.
Yeah, those things are great, but you have to understand there's going to be a bounce back from that. If you're doing everything and anything you can to get to a certain result, you're not going to stay there. And it's about improving your average over a long period of time. So everybody, you know, thinks average is bad, but average is great if you can improve your average over a long period of time.
Well, I mean, I look at it like this. You know, my mom and dad, they're both in our gyms, and, you know, I'm obviously in our gym all the time, and my wife, and it's like, what's the goal? Well, the goal is to be as fit as possible for as long as possible. And it's not just to be fit for a week or a month or a year or whatever. It's to have longevity. And what are things that are going to potentially impact you from your fitness, or getting injured, maybe going out too crazy? You know, I mean, I don't know about you, but we have people come to our gym all the time, NC Fit. We have locations throughout the Bay Area, and people come in and be like, hey, I want to lose 100 pounds. I want to do this. I'll be like, okay, cool. I want you to come in twice a week. I want you to just try and get rid of soda. Let's just start there. And then over time, you incorporate more and more. But if they start out too crazy, they can't maintain it, you know?
Right. It's addition by subtraction, you know? So if you walk in the gym and you're 300 pounds and I tell you to cut out carbohydrates, that's a huge deal.
And you could do it for maybe a week or two.
Yeah.
And then
you're
all
like,
fired up.
I lost 10 pounds.
Yep.
And then you gain 20.
Yep. You're done.
Do you find it hard to keep people's expectations in check?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just a really good conversation with them. Like, for example, we just signed a new deal with Lucasfilms.
Yeah.
And I was up there last week, and a gentleman said to me, like, hey, I haven't exercised in years and I want to get in better shape. You know, I want to come in every day. I want to do this. I'm like, hey, man, let's just start off twice a week. Let's just start you off with a coach helping you. And then once you do that for 2 weeks, then let's try 3, and let's try 4, and let's try 5. And let's turn it into, from this, oh, I have a passion to get in better shape, to, oh, now it becomes a part of my daily routine. You know, we were talking about when we travel. I mean, I travel a lot. I know you do too. But I mean, I'm going to be on the road, you know, every week for the next, as long foreseeable future, especially with the book coming out. And exercise is just a part of my routine.
Right.
You know, I wake up early, I get after it because I feel better.
Right. Yeah. If you wake up at, if you got to wake up at 4:30 or 5 o'clock to sneak in a workout, you'll kind of look at the clock and you'll judge it based off of like when you're able to get to bed and stuff, and maybe make the call to wake up early and get the training in. But it's a very rare occasion where you regret it. You know, it's a very rare occasion where you're like, oh, I shouldn't have gotten up. Every once in a while, you might have pushed the envelope a little too much because you might have went to bed at 11:30 and woke up at 4:30, and that might not always be a great idea.
I don't think I've ever regretted getting up early to do a workout, regardless of my travel, whatever. Sometimes what I will regret is if I'm, you know, staying up late, working out, working. I'm traveling like throughout Asia, and I do that for like 3 or 4 days in a row. It's a bunch of those factors that make me get sick, right? It's not just the waking up early to exercise. It's all the stress factors, the work factors, because when we open up new locations in Asia, it gets stressful.
I've been sharing with people that, you know, I think a lot of people need to stop setting an alarm to wake up. Sometimes you do need an alarm. I mean, sometimes it's necessary. Your boss wants you somewhere at a certain time, or you have a flight to catch at a certain time. So, you know, you don't want to just take my advice and be late for everything all the time.
Mark Bell said so.
But I do think that it's more important to set your alarm to go to bed than it is to wake up. And I think let yourself wake up naturally and just go to bed at the appropriate time. My alarm goes off around 8 p.m. every night, and I look at it. I don't go to bed at 8 o'clock right away. But, you know, within an hour or so, I try to make sure I'm in bed.
Yeah. My 6-year-old and 4-year-old have the same bedtime as you, Mark. No, I'm just kidding. They go to bed by 7:30. But same thing. I try and go to bed relatively early because I want to get up early. This morning I had meetings at 6, and it's like, well, you got to be there and get ready to go.
Typical meathead millionaire fashion. Right when Jason walked in, we sat down and talked business.
That's it. It's like my day. I had a meeting from 6 to 7, another one from 7 to 8. Shot up here, wanted to come and see you guys, and I wanted to sit down and just talk about what we could do together. I think in life, you kind of create this network of friends. And just like when my daughter got sick, friends support you through the challenging times,
Absolutely.
right? Friends or this network are supposed to raise everybody up, As the saying goes, as the tide rises, all boats rise or whatever.
Yep.
It's like, I want to see you do well. You want to see me do well. It's good for everybody.
Oh, absolutely. With what happened with your daughter was just a really wild thing, and it impacted a lot of people. But it also, in a good, positive way, raised a lot of awareness, helped draw more attention to pediatric cancer, helped raise more money for it.
Yep.
And your daughter's healthy now, and she's strong now, and it looks like things are heading in the right direction.
Yeah, we're about 5 months out now from treatment, and all is looking good. And it's funny. I think you and I did a podcast. Man, maybe a couple of months after I think she was diagnosed. And I got a lot of response from that. People just like, hey man, praying for you, positive thoughts. And then we did another one like a year or two later, and now here we are. And yeah, I mean, there are good stories that come out of it. There's a lot of bad stories too,
Absolutely.
but I think for me, it just gave me a lot of focus and drive. And that's part of the book that's coming out. This week we're releasing the Amorite Mentality book and as many reps as possible. And really I was originally writing this book because I'd be traveling, I'd read books that are kind of like hack based, like, hey, work less, get paid more, or, whatever it may be. And I realized it didn't align with what I found in business. So once Ava got sick, it made me kind of refocus what I wanted to talk about. And it's really about, why do we want to work hard? What's the reason for working hard? Is that if something ever happens, you're in the best position possible to attack it. Just like fitness, like if you don't work out for a month, you're still going to be pretty fit in a month from now.
Yeah, you're stronger going into something. I mean, there's more evidence now that they even talk about people's leg strength having to do with their longevity. What a weird thing, right? What a weird concept. But as you get older, what happens to a lot of people is they trip, they fall, and they get hurt. And once you're knocked off your feet and you're injured and you're 87 years old or 90 years old, things start to slide downhill real fast.
Very fast.
They actually have done some studies too to show that people that just move faster in general are usually more successful. Like what weird information is this, right? But like, think about that. Like if you get to your car to where you're walking to the grocery store, and you get in and out of the grocery store faster than the next guy. I mean, not everything has to be a sprint. Not everything has to be a race, but maybe everything is a race.
Everything's for time. I mean, the way I like to look at my day is like I segment it up. I try and prioritize different things, but when I'm at work, I'm at work. When I'm with you, I'm with you. When I'm, with the kids, I'm with the kids. And that's the way that I found to get the most productive throughout the duration of my day. I think a lot of people are 1 foot in, 1 foot out, which is tough. And you talk about moving fast. I think if you're moving fast and you're focused, you get a lot more work done. But if you're moving fast and you're unfocused and you're distracted, you're going to get not as much.
Do you have a tough time being patient?
Oh yeah, I mean,
is that maybe the hardest thing for you?
Yeah, I have pretty bad attention problems, so I have to really constantly remind myself to stay, keep attention, stay focused on one thing.
There's people that know you right now that are really laughing their ass off right now listening to this podcast. I remember going to that coffee shop with you. You're like, you hard sold us on this coffee shop. Like, this coffee shop's amazing. They got the best coffee in town. Da 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 da. Then we get in there and there's a line. You're like, I don't know about this, and you keep looking around. And you're like, let's get out of here. And we flew out of there and went to Starbucks.
Yeah. Dude, I just, I mean, for me, it's like I call it the Gotta Go program. And it's like, we got to go. We don't have time to be dilly-dallying. And I think you only have so much time in a day. And if I want to get home at an appropriate hour to see my kids, then I got to make the full day worth it,
Yeah, that was great. When you were showing us around, like your multiple gyms, like even some on multiples on one street, but you're like, guys, looked at your watch. All right, we got 7 minutes. Let's get in and out. Let's go. And we're like, oh shit, he's serious.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Because if we don't set a clock, like something I do in my garage and we do at the gym too, is obviously we set a clock.
Yeah.
And typically if you take a class at our gym, it's an hour or whatever it may be. But for me in my garage, it's easy to dilly-dally. For me, I turn on the clock, boom. When that clock hits 60 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever it is for that goal, I'm done. And I better have gotten the work done that I told myself I was going to. Otherwise, I'm disappointed. Time's up.
Does this get to be too much sometimes, like with the wifey? Like you sit down with her and you're like, hey, babe, we got 27 minutes or whatever it might be.
There's some things there's no clock on, but no, no,
It's not me. We're just running out of time. I promise.
She just keeps seeing you looking at your watch the whole time.
No, when we go out and stuff, I really try and make it about her. Like we went to Laguna Beach this weekend. I had a meeting in Irvine, and we just stayed for 2 nights. And for us, we want to make sure that we're still kind of keeping the fire. And I think when we go out to dinner, it's just about me and her. And because we've had a lot of adult conversations at a very young age because of our kids and one of them being sick. And so sometimes it's nice not to have the adult conversation, just date and just have fun.
Right. Your daughter getting sick obviously was like a big pivot point in your life. You getting involved in CrossFit, I would say, is probably another big pivot point.
Yeah.
But you met your wife at like 15, 14 years old, something like that?
Yeah. That was a big pivot point, right?
Yeah.
Just kind of, originally I didn't really understand what I had until you realize it, right? Where she was the person who really kind of gave me the drive, gave me the focus, gave me the determination to kind of do things. And she's always been the cornerstone and my biggest advocate. And I think really more than anything, she's allowed me to be about something, be about it. Like, hey, if you love this girl and you want to get her a house, fucking better be about it, go to work. And,
right.
And since then, there's been many things that she's done like that.
Right. What a weird thing too to meet, your significant other at such a young age, somebody that you're going to, spend the rest of your life with. A lot of times people would think, oh, it's just puppy love, or they just love each other because they're, a junior in high school or a senior in high school. When did it like really sink in, like that this is like a really long-term deal, not just some high school thing that's going to disintegrate when you go to college or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say. I mean, the first week I met her, I told my mom I was going to marry her, and then things didn't work.
And your mom must have been like, you kind of hear that all the time from
teenagers.
Yeah,
sure,
right?
okay.
Yeah,
and then
sure
so we started dating, and then it didn't work out, and after a couple weeks, she decided she didn't want me anymore. And I think it's because I was just kind of immature, foolish. And, a year later we got back together and we were there together ever since. I think really where I started to realize that she was the one was, after we got out of high school and we hit college, like I really knew that, hey, this is a done deal.
It just didn't feel right to not be with her.
That's right. And she elevated me. She enhanced my life. And I think if you find someone like that, you got to hold on to it. Last night I had a meeting with a gentleman and we were talking about, he was a little older than us and he was getting a divorce. And he told me, he's like, in hindsight, I would have moved mountains to keep my relationship. And I wish, in hindsight's 2020. But I think once you find someone important, you gotta do what you can to keep that relationship strong.
Yeah, I've heard that before. We've had some real beasts on this podcast and people that we really admire. And Jake Cutler was one of them. Jake Cutler's 4-time Mr. Olympia. And for a decade, he was either second or first in the Mr. Olympia contest. And I asked if he had any regrets, and he said, yeah, I lost my first wife. And, he just said that he loved her and that he couldn't hold it together with what he was doing. It was too selfish. It was just too much. And I really admire that he said that, because we've had so many other people on this podcast. They're like, no, man, it's about being the best. It's about, this and that. And they don't give a shit on what they lost. But to me, it's like, man, there's no depth to this person.
Even you, you've done the powerlifting thing, right? Obviously for a little bit. And then you kind of switch gears, started losing a bunch of weight. Then you decided to do a bodybuilding competition, which is just a whole second. I mean, the image I had of you was you getting the tanning solution just placed all like, it must have been so awkward. Like, now, sir, I need you to separate your cheeks.
Oh my God, it was like that too.
Oh man,
when I walked in, they're like, do you have a sock? And I was like, a sock. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can put on a sock. That's all I wore was a sock, and it tanned me up.
Oh my God, that's so awkward. Was it roll-on or spray?
It was spray. But they touch you a little bit because they call it buffing. They're like, I'm gonna buff you, but at least it was a bunch of young, cute girls. So wasn't too bad of a gig.
I wouldn't have.
Oh, there we go. Now you can visualize some of it. Oh. So that's like my bodybuilding, whatever the hell, panties, manis, I'll call them.
Yeah.
And then but then after this, they were like, yeah, you might just want to wear the sock because then we can tan everywhere. And I was like, okay.
Oh man.
And then they're like, hey, could you move it to the left, move it to the right? I'm like, okay. I'm like, okay. They're like, it's only weird. It's only feels weird for you. We're fine with it. I'm
Yeah,
like,
they've seen a lot of penises.
yeah. I was like, they're more comfortable with it. But yeah, you're like lined up too. It's like there's a bunch of dudes in there, so you're like, this is weird.
So you did the powerlifting thing. Then you did the bodybuilding thing, right?
Yep.
I mean, you experienced it, which more power to you.
Yeah.
What's the next thing?
Yeah, I know. People keep asking me about that. I really don't know. Right now, what I've been working on is kind of countering the dieting because I guess people don't fully understand is that like some bodybuilding can be healthy, some powerlifting can be healthy, some CrossFit can be healthy.
Yep.
But once you compete, then it becomes kind of unhealthy in some ways. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to try to reverse my way out of the bodybuilding diet, not just eat like a pig, but there's some strategy behind it to try to kind of heal your stomach. Because a lot of times what happens, people start to bombard their stomach with like pizza and ice cream.
Yeah.
They end up with kind of intestinal problems. So I'm trying to work on just eating natural foods and eating more than I was eating before. So bringing up the volume a little bit. And the next thing is just to work on getting strong, having some fun with it. And I would like to try to pack on some more muscle, pack on some more size, but continue to do a lot of the things I've been doing in the last few weeks and months. And that's get my blood work done, make sure I'm healthy. One thing I need to improve upon is my sleep. It's not where it needs to be. I need to sleep better. And so that's something I need to try to hone in on. But yeah, mainly it's just trying to get a little bigger. And then around March, which is around the time of the Arnold Classic, I'd like to see if I can get leaner than I was. And just things that I hear and things that I pick up from other people. People are like, well, you can only get as lean as you're ever going to get if you actually step on stage. And I want to prove that theory is not correct. I want to just get lean just to get lean and just be ripped up and shredded just
Just to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you decide you want to do a CrossFit competition, you let me know.
Well, I wouldn't rule that out, in some ways. I think the main concern on some of that would be, I love the CrossFit workouts. I've done some of them before, and a lot of that is fun. The main concern would just be injury, because again, like just you're going at it hard, and it's in a time constraint.
With some complex movements.
And some of the gymnastic stuff, I think, is where I would be susceptible to injury. The Olympic lifts and a lot of those things, I think I'd be fine with that. It would be difficult. But yeah, any of the gymnastic stuff would be really difficult.
Well, if you want to do it, you got a couple of events coming up. Maybe you and I could talk. You got a bodybuilding coach. Maybe if you need a CrossFit coach, I got your back. We'll see.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, it would be awesome to do some workouts and just get in better condition.
Yeah, we'd make sure that whatever you were doing it in a safe and effective way.
Yeah.
Handstand push-ups. You need to take some time before you get your shoulders ready for that.
I can't believe how hard CrossFit workouts are. And I mean, what'd you think of the men and women this year at the CrossFit Games? It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, you got Matt Frazier. He's just leading the pack. He's doing a really great job, and he's a good dude. And it's a great test of fitness. And Tia did awesome too. And a lot of it from TV perspective, but they don't realize all the decades of training and all the things that got them to there. It's like if you see someone go on the bodybuilding stage, you're like, wow, but you don't realize, there's certain things they did to put themselves in a position to be successful that day. They did X, Y, Z. Powerlifters, same thing. You don't get to 1,000-pound back squat by, just one day deciding you want to do it a month from now. It takes years.
A lot of people have a hard time watching the CrossFit Games on TV without accusing people of doing steroids. A lot of people will watch it and be like, man, that dude's ripped up, or that chick is ripped up. Look at how strong this guy is. And when you were over at Body Power, you had a driver who was well-versed in bodybuilding.
Oh, man.
And he gave you kind of the rundown of all the stuff these guys take to prep for a show.
I couldn't believe it. So I went to Body Power in UK, and this guy, we drove in this car for maybe, 3 hours together. And he went.
I don't think you knew, or you were on a 3-hour tour.
He was the biggest fanboy of bodybuilding ever. He knew everything about bodybuilding. And he was just telling me all the steroids, all the use, all the people have died, all the different. I'm like sitting there like blown away. And call me naive, call me what you want, but in the sport of CrossFit, there have been people who have been popped for different things. And frankly, for the reason why is because in powerlifting and bodybuilding and CrossFit, let's just say, there's a lot of volume that takes place, and you don't necessarily need to have, I'm going to try and articulate this appropriately, some natural ability for a specific thing. Like, for example, even if I took a bunch of steroids, I probably couldn't hit like Barry Bonds did. right?
Right.
He had call it God-given talent of eye-hand coordination to be able to do that, right? There was something gifted.
Right. Let's just kind of say that like if you took a bunch of steroids for chess, it may not have a big impact. If you took a bunch of steroids for golf, maybe it would help a little bit. But their skill level in golf still doesn't translate over into
Right.
football or powerlifting, right? Or
Yeah. So now you take powerlifting, right? You take bodybuilding, you take, for example, CrossFit, and there is a lot of benefit that comes because these athletes that are doing it aren't necessarily naturally gifted at one particular thing. Like I'll speak for myself, right? But they have good, well-rounded physical fitness across many things. And the steroid helps with recovery, helps with multiple things.
Right.
Now, when I was in it, I got out of it, 2 years ago. And when I was in it, I can only speak for myself, right? I got randomly tested all the time and I never took anything. I don't believe anybody at the top did. But with more money, more fame comes more opportunities for that. I mean, think about it this way. If guys are doing bodybuilding competitions, making 10 grand, 5 grand, no money. I mean, at the games, you can make, $250,000, $500,000.
right.
With more money comes more opportunity for that.
Let's say that you're going to compete in bodybuilding and you got, one guy that weighs 200 pounds, he's natural, and the other guy weighs 220 pounds. We've seen 20, 30-pound gains very easily from people utilizing anabolic steroids and prolonged use, 20, 30 pounds to hold on to that wouldn't be absurd. That'd be that'd be in the range of what most people would say. Yeah, that sounds about right. So that's a huge difference, right? One guy having 30 more pounds of muscle. Now, here's where it gets to be complicated. How would that matter and how would that factor in when it comes to something like CrossFit? The guy, I know that there's different steroids that kind of do different things, but for the most part, they make you bigger, and via making you bigger, they make you stronger.
Yep.
I am unaware. I'm not that well versed in. I know some of the negatives they can do to like your blood, and I know like some of the health risks that you can run into with them. But I'm unaware of the negatives in terms of what they could do to your performance-wise. Everyone's always talking about them being performance-enhancing.
Right.
But when it comes to CrossFit, I would say the verdict is out on what they do in terms of enhancement. And now there are other things that you can take. There's things that the cyclists take, and there's things that you can do to your blood.
Oxygen your blood more,
Yeah, there's a lot of things you can
doping.
do. And that would be the magic pill in CrossFit.
I mean, I think there's some gray areas, right, where maybe, it's mainly a recovery thing. That's at the end of the day, there's two major things that happen at the CrossFit Games. It's a lot of events. So you need to be mentally, how strong are you? How in the game are you? And then what does your recovery look like? So if you rode a marathon that took you 3 hours and did 4 other events where you're lifting for a 1 rep max, back squat, all this other stuff, and the next day you need to go do a bunch more stuff, how well is your body recovering and be able to then produce at 100%?
Right.
And so if you were doing steroids before, or if you're currently doing something that enhances that, that's where it starts to play a role. Or let's just say you got off of it for the games, but you were doing it before, well, then you're training, you could train more, hypothetically.
Right.
But I still believe that a guy like Matt Frazier, who's dominating the sport, or Tia, I don't believe they're taking anything. I don't. Now, I don't, I know them personally and I attest for their character. I don't believe they're doing anything. I just think they work really hard and they have very strong mental focus to get through all those hard events.
What's been amazing to watch in powerlifting is there's drug-tested federations. And there's a lot of people in drug-tested federations. Now, I just say tested so that way I'm not claiming that everybody's drug-free because I don't really know what they do and don't do.
Yeah.
But these men and women are drug-tested, and I am not going to believe that all of them take stuff. But what we've seen is that they are breaking records that were previously held by guys that are in untested federations that clearly utilize anabolics. And so, in my opinion, it's so very clear they obviously do a lot for you. And if we're talking about trying to walk around with 20-inch arms and a 600-pound raw bench, they do a lot for you. But they don't do everything that people think they do. I think people think that people just inject this stuff and they kind of sit back and wait for the wait for the gains to accumulate.
And that's part of the reason why I get frustrated when people claim that I've done something or someone else, is because for me,
they're trying to say you took a shortcut.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is, in our sport, because it's not readily known, available, whatever. For me, if you're going to go out there, you're going to put in so much work. I mean, is it really worth getting caught up? And then, I mean, did that really help you get to where you want to be? I mean, I would always question that for the rest of my life. I'd
Right.
always be curious.
Right.
You know, would I have qualified? Would I have won? Would I have done this? I mean, I would say probably yeah. You know,
Right.
I mean,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, and if you think about you go into different sports and you think about like racing a car, right? If you watch ESPN, they sometimes will race Dodge Neons, and people will say that's to find out who the actual best driver is because it's not about the performance of the car. Now, people are still taking shortcuts there and they're still modifying the cars whatever way they can, but powerlifting and bodybuilding have turned into sports where everyone has like a Formula One racer, like everyone
Yeah,
has
yeah.
a specialty car, and it's like the jump to taking the anabolics and stuff is almost just like part of the process, just as the girls buy short shorts for CrossFit or the guys buy certain shoes.
Yeah.
I know it sounds funny, but
Yeah.
but it's as common as that. It's as common as a dude ripping off his shirt in the middle of a workout for a guy to take steroids who wants to be at the complete top of his game when it comes to powerlifting and bodybuilding. It's no longer a jump of like, oh man, I don't know what that would be like to like inject
Yeah,
that
it's
weird oil into my body. It's not even a thought process anymore. It's like that's as common to me as like eating steak 3 times a day.
See, that's so crazy to me.
Isn't
right?
that wild? I know.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens in the CrossFit space. I mean, the competition is getting more challenging.
Mhm.
The bar just keeps getting elevated. I mean,
It's like you don't look at the dangers of how high you're climbing when you climb the rope, right? Like you're not really thinking about it much, are
oh,
you?
dude, yeah, you just climb.
You just climb it.
Yeah,
And at first, it's like, well, somebody's going to get really hurt, but nobody really thinks about it. It's like that's how high we got to climb. Oh, the pegboards, we got to go up and down 5 times. Okay, that's what we're doing, And one person, like that one year, everybody tore their pec.
yeah.
Nobody's like, hey, we can't do that exercise anymore. It's like, okay, we're lined up and we're going. Okay, there's pec tear number 15 or whatever it was, right?
yeah. For the ring
just keep every sport gets to have its dangers. But I guess my main point is that you can't really just take something and have you all of a sudden excel past some of these monsters that are putting together these outstanding performances at the CrossFit Games. And it's frustrating to me. I know a lot of these athletes too, and I'm not trying to like stand up for them and say I know that they're clean. It's just that I know that the work that goes into it, and if you've ever done a CrossFit workout, even if you just done one CrossFit workout at a pretty intense level, when you get done with it, you'll say, I think I understand
Right.
why it works so well for some
Yeah.
of these people.
Yeah.
Because it's freaking
When you talk
brutal.
about, back to like AMRAP mentality, right? And that's the kind of the approach throughout the duration of the day. The reason why it works so well is because when you AMRAP as many reps as possible in a given time, you just get so much more work done. Like, for example, I know I put up a post on Instagram and you made fun of me. You're like, that's called a superset. I'm like, yeah. And it's like, but imagine back in the day, like when I was supersetting in the gym, a little bit of bench, a little bit of pull, a little bit of bench, a little bit of pull. But I wasn't like going against the clock. I just knew I wanted to keep moving. Now you put the clock to it and you can get it done even quicker. And
That
that's
one workout you posted looked brutal. You were doing like almost like a burpee deadlift or something with weights in your hand.
Yeah. Burpee deadlift with dumbbells.
Holy
Yeah.
crap.
Yeah.
And were you doing something in between that, like a push-up or something? Or
I don't remember the exact one, but yeah, I've done a bunch of them like that. Yeah, burpee deadlifts with dumbbells are pretty hard.
Man, that shit's intense. So what is your, with an AMRAP mentality, how do you start your day? How does Jason Khalipa usually start his day? What does it look like?
Well, one thing I need to get better at, and I haven't done this yet, I need to, is I want to try and dedicate 10 minutes to meditation. I want to. I want to try and, a friend of mine used an analogy, I'm going to steal it from him, is that thoughts are going to go through in your head, but you want to try and make these thoughts like passing cars on a road. They pass and they just keep going, right? And you want to try and be clear in your thoughts. The thought will come, let it go. Thought will come, let it go, and learn how to do that. That's something I want to learn how to do, but I'm not there yet. So typically in the morning, right, I'll get up. I get up before the kids. I'll go in the garage. I'll work out. I'll ride my my assault bike for about 20 minutes, just getting some morning cardio. And then I'll start answering emails, probably see the kids, and then head off to the different gyms. And really, it's just about segmenting the day, right? When I'm in the garage, I'm in the garage. When I'm at work, I'm at work. When I'm with the kids, I'm with the kids. And that's part of the AMRAP mentality philosophy.
How do you keep track of like what's going on in your head? So like you start your day out with some exercise. What if an idea hits you? you stop and write it in your phone, talk to your phone, shoot a video? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, so I mean that happens to me a lot. Typically, what I'll do is I'll email myself. So like, let's just say I'm at dinner with the family, and this doesn't happen as much as it used to. It used to happen all the time because the reason why I told myself I needed to create this idea is that I was with my kids, but thinking about walking on my hands at a fitness competition, right? And I wasn't being that guy, right?
Yeah, you weren't present.
I wasn't being present. And so if a thought does come in, which it can, and it's important, boom, I'll just send myself an email, and that's the way I track my things. So some people use notebooks, some people use different things. For me, I determine how well I'm doing based on my emails being empty, not empty, but like,
Yeah, there's not a ton of them.
right. If it's unread, I need to establish what's going on.
How do you come up with certain ideas? Like, is there a mode that you get into? Do you listen to music? Do you listen to podcasts? Do you just go to a coffee shop? Are you by yourself? Are you with a buddy?
All the above. I mean, I'll be driving and I'll be thinking about the business. I'll be, and for me, it's almost like a paranoia that someone's coming up against us, right? I talk about this idea about breaking the band, and I just thought I'd share with you guys right now, which is, in business, in fitness, and whatever I'm doing, I'm trying to break the band. And for anybody listening, what that means is I had a track coach, his name's Chris Hinshaw. Him and I would run on the track and we'd run miles, whatever
He's
it is.
got great philosophies, man. That guy's got some brutal workouts.
For sure. But like him and I would be like, maybe this far, Mark and I, very close, 5-10 feet. And then all of a sudden, after a while, his goal and my goal was to break the band. So when you're about 5-10 feet from someone, you still feel like you're competing with them. Like they're your equal. Then all of a sudden, once you break it from 5 feet to let's just say 40 feet, you've now broken the band. So whether that's around a corner or whatever, you've now taken that person who's 40 feet behind you, and they're no longer thinking, oh, I'm keeping up with this person, I'm going to beat them. They're now thinking there's somebody behind me and I don't want them to catch us, right? And so when you break that band, it allows you to really establish yourself as the best. And so for me, throughout the duration of the day, what I'm thinking about from our business perspective is how do we offer better product to our customers? How do we expand and diversify? How do we do different things so that the other people in the CrossFit space don't look at us necessarily as the competitor? We're so far out front, they're worried about the other guys, right?
Yeah, I love that mentality. Like you're putting somebody so far in the rearview mirror. It's kind of like an Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. Like, there's not like whoever went to high school with those guys or college. They're not like, oh, I'm kind of like still rivaling.
Yeah,
it's like no, you're not.
Yeah,
it's just there's not even close.
And look, are we there yet? But no, but that's a goal, right? It should be a goal for everybody.
Your foot's on the accelerator.
Yeah. The goal should be for everybody that regardless of what you're doing, just to become really, really good at it so that, other people, like for example, when new people come into the space to design a phone, I'm sure they're not looking at Apple as a direct competitor immediately, right?
Right.
They're so far out front.
Yeah.
They need to focus on the whatever other brand there is,
No, I mean, that's one of the things that you've heard time and time again from executives from Apple is that they're always worried about their own stuff.
Yep.
They're not thinking about the other guy's so far back. They're not even thinking about what they're doing. They're continuing to make progress. So when you wake up in the morning and you're focused in on like, okay, I'm going to get some stuff done that's for me because everybody else is still asleep, basically.
Yep.
What happens when your son wakes up, randomly at 5 a.m. or whatever and comes in and tackles you? You call an audible and then you hang out with him for a little bit, or?
Yeah. So I mean, that rarely happens, but like. Yeah, of course. I mean, there was a while for about a year and a half, for a while we'd stay at the hospital.
Broke that kid's scooter.
Yeah, you remember that kid's scooter. Remember that? Well, I mean, for the last couple of years, we've been in and out of the hospital. Now that we're no longer in and out of the hospital, we're on a little bit more of a routine. But yeah, I mean, if you were to come in, boom. Like my whole thing is no matter what I'm doing, I really always remember that everything can more or less wait except for the kid sitting in front of me, right?
Right.
I mean, there's very, very rarely going to be an exception to that rule. But in general, like, here's an example. If I decide to walk in the door of the house and then I say to my son, hey, man, I got work to do, then shame on me because now all of a sudden I look like the bad guy because he wanted to instead just sit in my car and finish up my work. But as soon as I walk in the house, then be with him. And I think that's what I've been trying to lean more towards now is just everything else can wait at least a couple hours until they go back to bed or, at night. And I need to be with them.
Yeah, he doesn't need to see you on your phone. Like he knows that you work a lot. He knows that you already do that, and he doesn't need to see it more, right?
Yeah, we bought Nerf guns yesterday. Tonight. I mean,
Uh-oh.
my son's 4. I don't know how good of a parenting choice this
Having
was,
a
but
battle.
we are going to wear eye protection. But we're going to have a Nerf gun fight tonight.
That's awesome. Make some pizza.
Yeah, because tomorrow I leave for Minnesota for a couple days, and so I got to make sure I want to make sure we spend some time.
Yeah, that's a big deal. I know for myself, I try to do something similar. Like I try to wake up every morning. I usually like to go for a walk. So I go for a walk, or sometimes I'll do some cardio or something like that. And then I come back in the house and I cook for myself and for my kids. That's something I just started just about a week and a half ago. As I was getting through the bodybuilding stuff, I'm like, man, this sucks. Like, this is so selfish. I'm prepping all these own meals for myself, but then, I'm not taking care of the kids, or I'm not participating with the wife and helping out. It was just impossible. I just would not have the actual time or the energy to put into it, especially during like that last week when you really don't have a lot of calories going on.
Yeah.
It was too much. I had to focus in on myself to kind of get to my goal, and it was weird, but that's what had to happen. So the last week and a half or so, I've been cooking for them, and this morning I made them like French toast, and I've been making them like eggs and bacon and all this stuff. And then what's happened is, it's actually really cool, is they're getting up, like they smell the bacon, and they're getting up, and then they're coming down and they're helping me.
No point in smell the bacon. Yeah. Very good.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so you get to spend some time with them.
Yeah, and they're like, hey, Dad, you want me to make you a coffee or whatever? And they put the coffee in the coffee machine, and they push the button, and so we're all kind of participating. Jake was like unloading the dishwasher this morning and cleaning, and I was like, where am I?
Yeah.
we're in outer space or something. Things are kind of changing and pivoting a little bit. You got a question over there, Andrew?
Yeah, just personally, because I'm kind of trying to do the same thing, where I'm doing more stuff in the mornings and spend more time with my daughter and with my girlfriend. But I'm not in a position like you guys. Not saying that in a negative way, obviously, but there's times where like I promise something and then I'm like, shit, dude, I got to get Jason's podcast up, or whatever it is. That's just an example. Do you guys do like makeup days or anything like that? Like promise them something else another time? This is more like parenting advice is what I'm asking.
I'm sure you do, but I do. I mean, if something really comes up, like again, travel comes up a lot for me. If I have to head to Asia because we have locations there, I'd be like, hey, Ava, let's put on the calendar a date to go out to dinner, and that's what we're going to do. It's just gonna be you and me. And I think at the end of the day, there's this fine line. People talk about work-life balance, these different things, and it's never going to be perfect, right? But I think because you need to be a provider for your family and make sure you're supporting them, but I also think when you are around, you just need to be around. I think that's the biggest difference. That something that's really changed my life is just when I'm there, I'm there. I might only be there an hour a day or whatever, but I'm going to be there and I'm going to be all in.
Yeah.
And that's my wife says to me a lot. She's like, hey, look, you work a fair amount, but at least when you're around, like the kids know that you're going to be wrestling with them and whatever.
Yeah. Did you have a hard time we talk about having FOMO here, fear of missing out.
Yeah.
Putting work on hold while you do family stuff?
Yeah, it's tough, but I think at the end of the day, I have to realize, and again, I could always get better at this, is that two things I recognize. An email right now isn't going to be a difference between, 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. It's not going to make a difference because people aren't going to answer until tomorrow anyways.
Yeah.
And then secondly, I talked to a really successful business mentor of mine, super successful. And I asked him, I said, hey man, do you think you'd still be the president of company X if you had worked 10% less? He's like, yeah. He's like, nothing would have changed. He's like, I still would be in the same place today if I had worked a little bit less.
That's interesting. I think the same thing about strength. I think people lift too heavy. I think people lift too heavy too often. I think you could lift about 10% less and be the same exact strength.
See, there you go. Right?
I think you could, those reps and sets to failure and stuff. I think now there is that one kind of component of like, if you don't push past that 10%, you might not know what it's like to be a savage, and you might not know what it's like to be like really truly competitive when the chips are down,
right? And
a championship or something really big is on the line. That might be the only kind of component missing. If you don't have that extra gear, it might be because you're not, pushing into that last little bit. But I always say, just don't overload your back with your mouth. Like, don't overload your back with the things that you say. Because why am I going to sit here and promise you a bunch of stuff that I'm not going to do, that I'm not going to follow through with? So I try to think really logically. I'm a simple person. I try to just stay really simple. Like if we're talking in conversation about something, I have to tell you that I can't do something sometimes because I don't want that to like linger over top of me, you know. And if I say that I can do it, and then I can't do it, it's like, man, I threw more weight on my back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I threw more weight on my back without even really considering what somebody just said to me. You know?
Yeah.
That's a big factor for me. So when's the book coming out?
So tomorrow I go to Minnesota, giving a keynote on Thursday for a couple thousand people at an event called the Granite Games. Super stoked about it. And pre-sales launch. Basically, it's up on Amazon right now. And we're going to, do a few little edits to that. I'm going to add a video to it I think I'm really excited about. But by Thursday, everything on Amazon should be rock and rolling. And all pre-sale, we were talking about this earlier, proceeds go to supporting families with pediatric cancer.
That's
and
great.
as you know, for those of you who don't know, Mark is a big supporter of the stuff we've been doing with NIGU, the Never Ever Give Up Foundation. And basically my wife and I, we have our own kind of lane with them. So the money goes to them, not to us, but then we get to determine kind of where some of that money goes. And so all the proceeds, the net profit, at least for the pre-sales, will go to that. And so Jason Khalipa doesn't see any money from that because that wasn't the design of the book. The design of the book is to get the word out, to help people with their mindset and to support families.
Now, this is a book, kind of based on some of your success in business and in CrossFit and stuff like that too. But you share a lot of things that have happened over the last several years with your family and with your daughter and stuff, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I talk about the fact that, on the night that she was diagnosed, I wrote an email to some key staff, and that email for me is kind of like the driving force behind the book. Like the fact that I was able to write an email and say, "Hey, look."
Is that actual email in the book?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like,
that's cool.
It's basically the way it goes. Like, I'm sitting here. It was like 3 a.m. I'm crying. This is a real email. And I just said, "Hey, look, tell these people this, until further notice, unless it has to do with my daughter getting, healthy. I don't want to talk to anybody about anything." Right. And looking back on it, it's through all my competition experience, all the business experience, all the life lessons that allowed me to write that email and switch my focus. And now what I want to do is give people a set of tools that enabled me to get to that point where I wrote that email, put full focus, and we were able to go and attack this thing called leukemia.
Yeah, I think a lot of people maybe I think they think that if they shift their focus to something else, that they're really gonna like lose out, right? Like you might think, if you're trying to think logically in that situation, which would be really hard to do, but if you're trying to think logically, you might think, well, I still need to take care of the business because I still need to, get money, and I still need to do A, B, and C, and I need to make sure that the people at work are okay, and you need to try to think of all these different things. But I think a lot of people sometimes don't realize, look, if you shift your focus for a period of time and you let people know what you're doing, you make people aware of what you're doing. You tell mom and dad, you tell your brother, you tell your sister, you tell whoever you got on your side, say, hey, this is what I need to work on. Then you probably can afford to shift your focus.
Well, and on that point though, I was able to shift my focus because of all the hard work I had done. Right. So whether you own a company or you work for somebody, get so good at what you're doing that you could just, like, for example, let's just say you had an employee at your company and they were killing it. They're the best employee you've ever had. And they came to you and said, hey man, for the next 90 days, I cannot work. I need to get paid, but I can't work because my daughter got sick. You would say, yeah, I'll see you in 3 months.
Right.
Because they're so good at what they're doing that you want to retain them, right?
Right.
And so my thing in life is whether you own a business, set up for success, you have good people in places that if something happens, you're good to go. Or if you work for somebody, no problem. Just be so darn good at what you're doing that they want to keep you forever. That's an example, right?
Right. Yeah, it's something I've heard you speak about before, like even just saying, hey, like if you own a business right now, or if you're in charge of something, if you died today, what would happen to your business?
Yeah, you got to keep it going.
And that's something for people to think about in general. Even if you don't own a business, what would happen? Like where would your girlfriend be, Andrew? Where would
That's the motivation though.
Yeah.
But that's the motivation to get up today.
Right.
And to go for a walk. That's the motivation today, to get up today and work a little harder, right? And really work hard. Don't just talk about it, but actually be about it. Like really work hard, because you never know when life's going to throw you a curveball, and let's be as prepared as possible. You're never going to be perfect, of course, but that's my inspiration. Like if you can't tell, like I'm fired up about this stuff because I think it makes a difference.
Right.
My hope is that, not my hope, but one day, a year from now, someone reads the book today or when it releases, and a year from then, something happens in their life. And they send me an email like, dude, because of what you put out there, it helped me approach this better. That's what I hope.
What are a few strategies that are in the book that somebody listening to this right now, without even reading the book, could kind of utilize right now? Like, what's something like do you like to, the second that you park somewhere, do you like to get out of the car quick? And is there something like little things that you have that are like these weird nuances that you feel put you in a favorable position?
I mean, I think the most favorable thing is just to know why you're doing something. Like, if you don't know why you're doing something, you probably shouldn't be doing it, right? Because if you don't have a deep why when things get hard, you normally just will give up, right? And that goes for bodybuilding, that goes for anything you're doing, right? And so once you know your why, once you know what you want to focus on, then it's just about being honest with yourself about how hard you're working. And just like I see somebody in the gym, and if I walk up to them, I said, "Hey, did you work hard today? How was your workout?" And they said, I did the best I could. Then I high five them, that's it, right?
Yeah.
But if you got to be honest with yourself, like if you know you didn't do the best you could, then tomorrow go in there and do a little bit better. So I think the whole theory is with the Amorite mentality is just work hard, right? Be focused on something and then segment it throughout the day. So when you're at home, be at home. When you're at work, be at work. And I think you'll see your productivity go through the roof. Like if you have emails to do, turn on a clock for 1 hour, just crush emails and you'd be amazed at how many more you'll get than if you do one email, then all of a sudden you're on Facebook. Do another email, you're texting with a homie. You don't know, but if you just do it for 1 hour, you'd be amazed.
How much stronger do you think you are from exercise and from having this AMRAP mentality from the time that you kind of started messing around with CrossFit and just lifting in general? Because a lot of times
you have to overcome adversity.
You get to rep number like 3 and you're like, oh my God, I'm dying. And you still figure out a way to get to rep 17 or 20 or whatever it is.
And I'll tell you, 20 rep back squat as an example, when you're going from reps 12 through 20 or reps 5 through 10, there's something about that's just fitness, right? But that translates so well into real life. And I'm an example of a guy that's seen it, I have had my back up against the wall in competition many of times and I've made it through. But those life lessons have been so helpful when our back was really up against the wall, with our daughter in the ICU. Right. And I think there's something special about developing that in an area where, it's not really like life or death. Like, hey, if you get 5 reps, you get 8, it's not the end of the world, but it is because you're pushing yourself to get there. Right. And you have to overcome adversity to get there, right? But now if you keep ingraining that positive self-talk, whatever it takes to get there, now translate that into real life and you got a winning solution, in my opinion.
I love the way it translates too, because sometimes you have to just teach yourself to stop too.
Yeah.
Which is a hard thing to do. Like you're trying to do 8, but you stop at 5 and you're like, man, I really wish I could have got to 8, but it wouldn't have made sense. And you may not have recovered, or on rep 6 or 7, you may have got hurt, and it's like sometimes you got to and that's the hard part is try to decipher.
Yeah, sometimes it's just not there. Right? It's been hard for me, because my priorities have shifted since competing to not competing as much. And so I just got to make sure I, put my ego in check and recognize why am I doing what I'm doing, right? When I was competing at the highest level, my why was I wanted to win, right? And I wanted to, follow through my commitments. But to win, I needed to go to rep 6, 7, 8, right? But now my why is I want to be fit for my family.
Right.
And so do I need to go to rep 6, 7, 8? Probably not. It doesn't align with my core value of my why. And that's okay. Because if I hurt myself on rep 7, I'm not going to be able to throw my kid in the pool.
Right.
But if I hurt myself on rep 7 competing for the CrossFit Games, that's just part of doing business.
Right. Any other questions over there, Andrew?
Every time we've gone to any of your gyms, there's usually really good music playing. When I was playing music here at this gym last visit, you were getting down to it. Who's your favorite rapper? Because I was playing like some Atmosphere.
I like some old school hip hop.
Yeah, just because you were really like a lot of people don't really understand or even know the music that I play.
Yeah.
So the fact that you were like mouthing the lyrics, and I was like, holy shit, like, dude, what's up?
Little Atmosphere, people under the stairs,
there you
Grouch.
Go. Yeah.
But obviously some Jay-Z, some Drake. I like those. Whatever.
Yeah, it was just on my mind because I was just thinking when we went to one of your multiple gyms. We walked in and it was people under the stairs, and I was like, dude, you don't have that at any other gym, So that's pretty dope. Yeah. But no, that's all I got, Mark.
What's the coolest thing that's happened to you being part of this fitness community and CrossFit and all that kind of stuff?
Without getting too into it, it's the fact that, after Ava got sick, everywhere I went, wherever I went, you had thousands of people come up to me and tell me they were praying and sending good vibes to Ava. That's probably the coolest thing.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah.
You have your own podcast. It's Business Business of Fitness podcast.
Yep. So the Business of Fitness podcast is really for coaches, owners. It's really just about the business of fitness. We will be having a new one called the Amorite Mentality with Jason Khalipa. It'll be coming out, but for now it's just Business of Fitness. You can check it out, and for the most part, JasonKhalipa.com, Jason Khalipa on Instagram, and please visit Amazon. I would really appreciate your support with the book, and let me know your thoughts on it when it actually delivers in early January.
Yeah, the link to order the book is in the description of the podcast on iTunes and on YouTube.
He's got 25 gyms. He's got 5 gyms on the same street from what I remember last time he took us on tour.
Oh, come on.
He's the 2009 CrossFit Games champion and a good friend of mine. Guys, this is Jason Khalipa. It's all the time we got for today. Strength is never weakness, and weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later.